Braja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paribrajacharya Astotra Stotra Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premanand. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we are on the second to last chapter of the 10th canto. And which one do we have up there? If you could put, I don't know, is it a local person or is it somebody in a cave somewhere who does this? Oh, it's right there, okay. And if they could put 36 on, but I'll just read the English for 30 to 35, okay? So the Brahmana is speaking. And he says something really heavy. It's not light what he's saying. He's basically blaming Krishna. And he says, neither Sankarshana, Vasudeva, Pradyumna, the best of the bowmen, nor the unequaled warrior Aniruddha could save my sons. Then why do you, who's he speaking to? Arjuna. Then why do you naively attempt a feat that the almighty lords of the universe could not perform? We cannot take you seriously. So not only does he blame the Chaturvyu, the Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, but then he says, I don't take you seriously, Arjuna. It's pretty heavy, right? We'll talk about, why he's feeling that way. So Arjuna said, I am neither Lord Sankarsana, O Brahmana, nor Lord Krishna, nor even Krishna's son. Rather, I am Arjuna, the wielder of the Gandiva bow. Do not minimize my ability, which was good enough to satisfy Lord Shiva. O Brahmana, I will bring back your sons, dear master, even if I have to defeat death himself in battle. Thus convinced by Arjuna, so he was convinced, okay. O tormentor of enemies, the Brahmana went home satisfied after hearing Arjuna's declaration of his prowess. Is that better? Yes. Okay. Thank you. When the wife of the elevated Brahmana, and it's interesting, elevated, so even though he's criticizing God, basically, was again about to give birth, he went to Arjuna in great anxiety and begged him, please, please, protect my child from death. Okay, now you could show the Sanskrit. Thank you, Prabhu. And I'll try to pronounce it relatively okay. Sa upas pristya sotyambo namaskritya maheshwaram divyanyastrani samsmritya sadyam gandivam adade. Please chant. Ishwaram. Ladies? Okay, so let's go over the word for word. It's good I don't have good eyesight because, well, okay, now it's not there, but when you see yourself up there, it's kind of weird. You're in class. Okay, so saha refers to he or Arjuna, and upaspritya means touching. Suchi, we know what that means, pure. Ambha means water, and namakritya means offering obeisances. Maheshwaram, to Lord Shiva, and we'll see in the purport that it's interesting that, it's significant that he's offering obeisances to Lord Shiva instead of Lord Krishna. Divyam, celestial. Astrani, his missile weapons, which is interesting since they're in the news a lot lately. Missile weapons, right? Samspritya, remembering. Sadyam, the bowstring. Gandivyam, to his bow Gandiva, and Adade, he fixed. Translation. After touching pure water, offering obeisances to Lord Maheshwara, and recollecting the mantras from his celestial weapons, Arjuna strung his bow Gandiva. And the purport. The Acharyas point out that since the Brahmana had disrespected Lord Krishna, Arjuna tactfully offered his obeisances instead to Lord Shiva, who had taught Arjuna how to use the mantras of the Pasupata weapon. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giradhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's a challenge to deal with the here and now, what's in front of our face, and whatever happens to us in our life, and we all have things every day that happen to us in our lives. And at the same time, remember Krishna, and also remember our philosophical basis. Because often the first reaction is to deal with something either practically, and often that practicality is influenced by something quite emotional. Like here, the Brahmin is trying to kind of place blame. Where should I place the blame for my 9 sons all being killed, dying right after birth? Naturally, if you just think about it, anyone who's had children, and even if you haven't had children, you were a child at one time. Were brahmacharis children at one time? Yeah, okay, just checking. You could just imagine losing 9 of your children, right? I mean, we know just a number of chapters earlier, what Devaki went through. Actually, 4 chapters earlier, we find out, she finds out like the backstory on the whole thing about her 6 children dying. But she was so distraught. So imagine one after another, what that would do to the heart of this Brahmana, and of course his wife. So it's kind of natural when you're in that emotional state to try to, either point the blame somewhere or have some kind of emotional reaction. And yet, not yet, but additionally, we are trained. All of us, we have a training on how to deal with these kind of situations. Now, it may not be that extreme for us in our life, about 9 children dying, but we all have, this is not a curse, by the way, this is just reality. We all have stuff that happens to us in our life, right? And we have this, this training. So let's talk a little bit about this training. The verse that comes to mind, of course, is the famous verse that Prabhupada said should be the guide for all devotees. There's only one verse that I've ever seen Srila Prabhupada say should be the guide of all devotees. Anyone besides Prahlad Nanda Maharaj know that verse? Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, say the whole thing loudly. And what chapter is that in? 14. Yeah, very good. Yeah. And who's speaking it? Lord Brahma. Yes, Lord Brahma. Yes. Such an important verse. Such an important verse. And Prabhupada in the Nectar of Devotion says it should be the guide for all devotees in chapter 10 of the Nectar of Devotion. That I won't dissect the whole verse. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, But one of the points in there is when it says Vapur Bir, that with your heart, with your mind, with your heart, with your words, glorify Krishna. For the practical, I have to be careful with your P's. Right? The practical application for us is we take shelter of the process. And specifically, something we hear again and again and again and again is of hearing and chanting. So because the tendency when difficulties come is to not do that. Otherwise, the verse wouldn't say Jiveti yo mukti pade sadaya bhak, that if you can do this, you automatically basically go back to Godhead. Right? So in one sense, we could say that Krishna conscious training is the time from when something happens to us to when we actually remember Krishna, that shortens. Until eventually we're so trained and Krishna conscious that it's instantaneous. Okay, some challenge in our life, we take shelter of Krishna. And then we have other philosophical things or theological concepts that we take shelter. One time, Srila Prabhupada told Peter Burwash, "Do not be upset at the agent of your karma." What a powerful statement. Do not be upset at the agent of your karma. When someone's giving you a hard time, they've taken your karma on a silver platter and said, "Here, Prabhu, please take." Right? That's that. And then we have the pastime, the 17th chapter of the first canto, where Dharma the bull, when Parikshit Maharaj says, "Who did this to you?" What did he say?
My own karma.
Well, he said my own karma. Yeah, yes. He also, he did a few things. He went into, a lot of different philosophers say a lot of different things. And then in the purport, Prabhupada talks about the 6 schools of philosophy, Jamini, etc. But basically, he says, I can't really say who did this, right? Because he's saying that it's complicated to understand why things happen to us. And then we also know, ultimately, Ishvara Parama Krishnas, right? That Sarva Karana Karanam, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Lord. Prabhupada also goes, he does in the purports talk a lot about it's our karma, and he quotes the Padma Purana, which is also quoted extensively in the Nectar of Devotion about the 4 stages of karma, aparabdha, kuta, bija, parabdha, right? And how entangling that whole process is of reactions from so many different lifetimes. So that's another thing we can put into our mind when stuff happens. And that the Tatenu Kampam verse also talks about that we blame ourselves. And we also thank Krishna that he so kindly minimized the reaction that we could have gotten. What else? And we see that Krishna has a plan for his devotees. Krishna has a plan, and that's what we basically learn when we go chapter to chapter to chapter in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That Krishna has a plan for his devotees. For example, Maharaj Parikshit gets cursed for a minor offense. He shouldn't have done it, but it was a minor offense, and he's cursed to die in 7 days. If it were me, I would have tried to find how I could counteract that curse, right? or curse back, something like that. But no, he accepted it, and of course he heard the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Krishna does have a plan, and when things happen to us, our tendency is, and this is a good example of Maharaj Parikshit, and also Chitraketu Maharaj when he was cursed by Parvati. Our tendency, at least my tendency, is to immediately want to adjust the material circumstances. Okay, this happened to me. Let me fix it by doing this or doing that, right? And I'll be happy when the material circumstances change. That's when I'll be happy. But I don't know if you ever had this experience. Sometimes they don't change, or sometimes they don't change the way we want them to. And Krishna's actually doing something else to us. He wants to see a different kind of change, right? A change of heart, a change of taking shelter, a change of remembering him. He's seeing his hand in things. And if we can do that, then whether the material circumstances change or don't change, we can be happy, we can feel satisfied, and most importantly, we can feel connected to Krishna. Because we should learn to walk by faith and not by sight. Because often Krishna's doing something to us that we don't, it's around the curve and we don't see it yet. Raise your hand, not now, not yet, you have to hear the whole thing first. Don't just, Simon says. If you've ever had this experience that something happens to you, and at the time when it happens, you're in anxiety, you're fearful, you're distraught, you wish it hadn't happened, and then sometimes later, whether it's a day, a week, a month, or a year, or 5 years later, you look back at it and you say, oh, that was Krishna's mercy. Has anyone ever had that experience? Okay. So often, Punch has got both hands up. Temple presidents go through that a lot.
I have 4 hands to put all of them.
If he had 4 hands, he put them. Right. And we know the story that Srila Prabhupada, is it Srila Prabhupada, that we hear from others? Sometimes people say it's a Prabhupada story. I'm not sure. But it is the story we hear about the king who lost one of his fingers, right? And the minister said, oh, it's Krishna's mercy. And you know what it's like when somebody says to you, Prabhu, Krishna's mercy, and you feel like, I'll give you some of Krishna's mercy. But, our ego isn't ready for it often, right? It's the Tatenu Kampam verse, often you have to walk alongside a devotee as they gradually realize that instead of pushing them towards that verse. Yeah. So the king also said, I'll give you some of Krishna's mercy, and he put the minister in jail for saying that, and then the king went on the tour. I'm telling the story briefly because I think most of you know it. And he was captured by, was it Kali worshippers, or was it? Kali worshippers, yeah, and they were just about to offer him to Kali, and they said, whoa, wait, we can't offer him, he's missing a finger, right? So he was released, he went back to his kingdom, he took the minister out of the prison, and he said, you're right, that was Krishna's mercy. And he said, but how is it Krishna's mercy that you were in this smelly, awful, damp jail with terrible food? And the minister said, well, I usually tour with you, and I have all 10 fingers. So, yeah, so we may have some kind of some kind of incident or incidents in our lives that we can relate to this point. Right? But still, we don't, at least I can, again, speaking for myself, it's hard for me when I'm in the midst of it to remember that story, to remember the previous times when I saw Krishna's plan a little later, and to take shelter of Krishna, to remember Krishna, to remember Krishna's unswerving kindness towards us. What's a couple of Bhagavad Gita verses that show Krishna cares for his devotees? Apichet Sudaracharo, 9:30? Is that right? Yeah. Okay, what else? Ananyas Chintayantamam, 9:22. Yeah, Yoga Shema Mahamyam, I preserve what you have, I carry what you lack. One that doesn't get a lot of airtime in this but 1864, Istosi Me. Krishna says, you're very, very dear to me. Very, very dear to me. So again and again, it's there in the Bhagavad Gita. So one of the challenges for us is to, shorten that time. Ultimately, when things happen immediately, Krishna, I don't know what your plan is. I take shelter of you. I'm going to take shelter of hearing and chanting, pick up my beads, That's what it means to be a devotee. That's what it means to be a devotee. Now let's talk a little practically. We have to, well, first of all, we have to become more deep in our bhakti in order to shorten that time. One time, this is a Prabhupada said, by the way, it wasn't one of those, I'm not sure. Prabhupada was walking on the shore of the Pacific Ocean, and he said, why is it called the Pacific Ocean? Because Pacific comes from the word pacify, to be peaceful. And the devotees were trying to figure it out. And he said, because it's deep. Because it's deep. So when we're deep in our Krishna consciousness, the waves that come and go in our lives don't affect us as much. And be really careful. We have to be talking about practical. Be really careful about making assumptions. We just talked about 2 assumptions. Parikshit Maharaj assuming that Samyak Rishi was faking samadhi, and then a whole bunch of stuff. Now, of course, it was Krishna's arrangement, but a whole bunch of things happened because of that. Or what was the other one? Parvati assuming that Chitraketu was offending her husband, and whole chapters of the Bhagavatam took place because of that, right? And there's so many examples. So many examples. When the monkey warriors first saw Vibhishana surrendering, they were like, yeah, right. This guy's he's got an agenda, right? They made an assumption. What did they make? And do we ever do this? They made an assumption. Based on his birth, right? Right? Based perhaps on his dress, because maybe he was dressed like I don't know how demons dressed in those days, but he came from the Ravana camp. Right? They made an assumption about his association, right? He was always hanging out with the Ravana and all those bad guys like that. So do we ever make assumptions like that, by the way? In my field of service, the number 1 cause of conflict in the world, and in ISKCON, and in the Shastra, is when we make an assumption that ends up being wrong. Right? And we make assumptions every day. And a lot of them are correct. But when we make one that's wrong, and especially about another Vaishnava, watch out. And the Shastra is just filled with examples of us. I just mentioned a few. What was the one that happened with the Shamantaka jewel and Krishna? What did people assume about Krishna?
He stole the Shamantaka jewel and killed his brother.
Yeah, he committed murder and he stole just to get the jewel. And Prabhupada writes in the Krishna book that this rumor spread all over Dwarka, like wildfire. So anyone who's ever been, had rumors about you on social media, don't feel so bad. You're in good company. It happened to Krishna. But these assumptions can cause havoc in our personal spiritual lives. And so how do you overcome, because we make assumptions we make assumptions all the time, and some of them really help us. You're going down a dark alley at night, and you see someone with a hoodie on and looks 3 times your size. You might assume this could be problems, and you take a different path, right? Just to be, so assumptions can be helpful, but they can put us in trouble. So one way to deal with it is to be curious rather than judgmental. Instead of immediately reaching a judgment, because we can be very, very convinced about our assumptions. Even again, it was Leela, but Mother Parvati was convinced that Chitraketu was offending her husband. Parikshit Maharaj was convinced that he was faking samadhi. Another one, Mother Sachi, who did she offend? Advaita Acharya. She was convinced that she was preaching to her son to take sannyas, right? No offense, Mark. Right? Yeah. So she was convinced. She was convinced. So we can get very convinced about our assumptions about others sometimes. So to be curious instead of judgmental. right? When you're online for prasadam, and there's 8 gulab jamans left, right? And Panchagoda Prabhu takes all 8 of them. You know? That's the point, yes. You see? So my assumption is this guy's a glutton, he's just what a rascal, I don't get any, But if I would have said, Panchagoda Prabhu, why are you taking, I'm just curious, there's still a few of us here, and why and he said, well, actually, we have some VIPs here, and they're from, they've never had prasadam before, and I wanted to give them. And I go, oh, boy, am I, So instead of that offense, at least in my mind, or I probably would have been more, I put it on Shruti Kirti, but can you believe what this 8 gulab jamans? I mean, I can't, but yours talk to him. Right? So then he tells, everybody, and he goes on the internet. And so, all of a sudden, Panchagoda Prabhu's 8 gulab jamans are like the talk of ISKCON. So, a simple thing, curious, oh, Prabhu, what's going on? And then, oh, okay, glad I didn't commit an offense there, right? So to be curious instead of judgmental. Also, to sometimes, if you can do this, is to think of another alternative interpretation, right? Parikshit Maharaj could have thought, well, maybe he actually is in samadhi. Parvati Mata could have said, well, actually maybe he was just astonished that it is a little funny. My husband's giving class to renunciates and I'm sitting on his lap. It is kind of not normal. And sometimes it's just something we don't know. Look at this case here, this Brahmana. How long would he ever come to the conclusion that my sons were killed because Mahavishnu wanted darshan of Krishna and Arjuna? Would that have ever come into his mind? I'm sorry if I'm giving away the plot. It's a few verses later. Sorry. For the future class givers, I apologize. But, so we just don't know. And the problem is we don't know sometimes. And that gets us in a lot of trouble because, he literally, the Brahmana probably could have guessed until the next kalpa, and not figured out that one, right? But then again, one question, what happened? And then he could have, of course, eventually did get the proper understanding. So these are some, important lessons from this small, short purport and story, just about how we can practically deal with different challenges. And then, of course, this is a very extreme challenge of losing 9 babies in a row. But our mind can make things that are much less than that just as big. Anyone had that experience? Right. That one Panchagoda taking those 8 gulab jamans, I can meditate on that for days. What a I remember when, anyway, I like that. Our minds can really get into it. There's 2 other lessons from this verse, but I thought first we could talk about comments, questions, thoughts on these points first. Yes, Panchagoda. Do we use mics? Yeah.
Whatever happens, we take it as the mercy of the Lord. So how is that any different than any other philosophy? I mean, like in atheist, whatever happens is going to happen, or how we can see that that's the Lord's mercy, that this happened to me and I shouldn't be disturbed by it, and how to deal with it.
So how do we attain, let me see if I understand correctly, how do we attain that consciousness where we can see it as the Lord's mercy?
Yeah, in the sense that you said something very severe or awkward may happen, and you feel that Krishna's punishing me, or somehow I'm getting purified and atoned. So how do we understand to do that?
What do you do?
I call you. He does.
Well,
he pacifies the mind sometimes. In case you have any problems, I'll give you his number.
Yeah, it's really, I mentioned it before, but thank you for bringing it up, because it's so important and a challenge when our minds are disturbed to really take shelter of Krishna. That doesn't mean we don't deal with things practically, by the way. I had a professor once, it was such a great thing, this was 40-something years ago, 50, but he said, it's okay to have your head in the clouds as long as your feet are on the ground. Right? And I was thinking, perfect example, like Prabhupada was always remembering Krishna, and we see his diary, 12 cents on a stamp, and he kept track of, this world. So, but the first thing, the challenge I find in myself is I usually go here first, and maybe a few days later become philosophical. But the recommendation is first, tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudyacha. Remember Krishna, remember the philosophy, remember that we should take shelter of him. And then we can do our practical yudyacha, we can do our practical deal with the situation. The tendency is, at least for me, is so much to deal practically first. So there's just so much potency in hearing and chanting about Krishna. It's so powerful. And of course, there's other angas of bhakti, deity worship, talking to the other thing is to talk to a devotee. Because sometimes if we keep things in our mind, anyway, I don't know if anyone's ever had this experience, it's kind of like, I don't know if they have hamsters in India, but you're just on this hamster wheel, just going around and around, going like an infinity circle. You're just going, chewing in. You think about it when you're supposed to be chanting japa. You think about it when you're taking prasadam. And you're not getting it anywhere because you're having this argument within your head. You say one thing, you say, yeah, but what about this? And you say, well, yeah, but what about that? Right? So when we, even just talking to, like you say, you call me, even talking to someone else, just getting it out of our head and out of our mouth, so to speak, that often clarifies things. And of course, then the devotees can also help us see things in a different perspective. Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
Just a little comment on that.
Please.
Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, ultimately, if we want to understand everything properly, we have to become conscious of Him. And he says the process is, this is 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, beginning with text 8. Then 9, he says, Matshita Mashkita Prana Bodhyantash Parashparam. So we have to hear from the devotees, as you said, and then we have to learn how to engage our chitta, our consciousness, as you also said, as Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu, and our body and our activities in Krishna's service. Then Krishna says, in proportion, Tesham Sadatam Yuktanam, as much as we steadily and enthusiastically engage in Krishna's service, to that extent, Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. Krishna enlightens us. And then, if we pass the test, use the intelligence Krishna has given us, or as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, one has to pass the test of the spiritual master. And when he sees the genuine desire of the disciple, he automatically blesses him with genuine spiritual understanding. So then if we pass the test, then Tesham Eva Nukam Paratam Ahama Jnana Jamatamaha. Then Krishna becomes compassionate to us, and then he actually gives us vigyan, not only theoretical knowledge, but actually enlightenment, by which everything becomes clear.
Wonderful. I'm really glad you quoted Machchita, because one of the names for Krishna that really inspires me is Chitta Hari. When it takes, cleanses, whatever, takes away, whatever the word is, our consciousness and purifies it. Yeah, thank you. There was a hand here first. Yeah, this brahmachari here. And then.
I was just wondering, what is the root of us wanting to find someone to blame when something goes wrong? What is the cause of that?
Oh, that's easy. Krishna Buli Se Jeev Anadhir Bahir Mukh. That we've turned our back on. Because ultimately it's blaming Krishna. If you take it to the existential, is that the word? The existential, conclusion that we've turned our back on Krishna. It's a heavy thing. If I'm talking to you and then I do this, how do you feel? So that's what we've done to Krishna for a long time. So that's the ultimate. You asked about the, yeah. If we bring it down to, to just on the ground level reality, yeah, we tend to not, we either, as devotees, sometimes we either blame everybody else or we get totally, not totally, we get, we blame ourselves and, we think I'm lower than the worm in stool, I'm lower than the stool within the worm, whatever, we really get down on ourselves. And neither of those are very helpful. And as Maharaj is quoting those verses from the Bhagavad Gita, it's better to become conscious of Krishna. Humility means I need Krishna's help. Actually, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, humility and prema are equated, because it's actually such a deep spiritual emotion to actually feel that I need Krishna. And I think some of us, we could practice that because, at least again, I'm talking about myself, my mind can get so disturbed. The only thing that can help me get out of that hamster wheel is Krishna. Chitta Hari. Yes, Mataji. We don't have a mic for you?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to, ladies, men will have.
Your points are very good. Like, if you blame yourself, then you can go into a deep well too.
Yeah.
A friend of mine made up a poem once. He said, "Don't complain, take the blame, chant the name."
That's a good one. That's a nice one. Okay, thank you. Don't
complain, take the blame, chant the name.
That's a good one. Yeah. I used to like Gunagari Maharaj's, what was it? A little different, but better not best, can't take rest till your good gets better and your better gets best. That one's hard. Is there, everyone's pointing, who's next? Who's got the mic? Whoever has the mic rules the world.
Thank you. The points are really poignant. And so I wrestle, of course, with my mind all the time.
Join the club.
I thought it was very helpful to take shelter of superior intelligence. And who is superior intelligence but our spiritual master, a pure devotee. So the other day I was reading, Prabhupada made it very simple. There's items of Sharanagati, or rendering 6 items of surrendering to Krishna.
Yeah, Anukuliya system.
So Prabhupada said, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He's the proprietor, and he's your best friend. So I had to tell that to my mind in those circumstances.
Nice.
All we have is the guide, we go around our life and we might remember verses or not, but we had to connect. I feel for myself, I had to connect to what would Prabhupada do? What is Prabhupada thinking of this? And whatever he quotes, I know is perfect. So yes, we have the mind and then the intelligence and the false ego and like that. So when those take over, we're in trouble.
Watch out. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the word is surit in the 5th chapter, 29th verse, and that means a very intimate friend. Yeah, a very dear friend. Yeah, and if you bring up mind intelligence, if you think the mind is a problem, the false ego is a big problem. Because actually the mind just protects the false ego. We have a concept of who we think we are, and then the mind spends all day accepting and rejecting according to our false conception of who we think we are. And it's incredible because the most basic part of our philosophy, we're not this body, we're spirit, soul, we're Krishna's eternal servant. That is not an easy thing to fully understand and embrace. Because that ultimately, if you can do that, especially the third part, I'm Krishna's servant, false ego, khatam ho gaya, it's finished. Should we go? Yes. Oh, Prabhu.
Just, if we see, I mean, we know there are wrongdoers in the world and that we need to protect ourselves from them, and also somebody needs, like Arjuna here is protecting this Brahmin, somebody needs to protect people from the wrongdoers. So how do we do that without losing this sense of Tenukampam?
If you knew Prabhuji's occupation, you'd understand why he asked questions like that. Is he a lawyer? No, he's a lawyer. He's a Paka lawyer. No, not him. He's a...
Well, it is the advocate's
It's so
duty to-
yes. We can remember Krishna actually in Arjuna's case, or if it's our service to do that. So Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Mama Nusmar. Remember Krishna, and then kick the guy out of the temple when it's appropriate, of course, after due process. So, but yes, sometimes it's just like I can't remember why I was reading that recently, but the time the Pandal program when the devotees the night before had all come down and, from the stage and danced, and so the organizer wanted the same thing to happen the next day, and the organizer was really quite upset that devotees were staying on the stage. Then started pulling on the saris of the Matajis there, and Prabhupada was ready to clobber him with the kartal. Yeah. No. So I'm sure Prabhupada was remembering Krishna, and he was definitely ready to protect the devotees. Is that all right? Yeah. Let's see, what time is it? Okay, there's a hand up somewhere?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
I have one question.
Okay.
During Mahabharata war, Krishna has not allowed any of his sons to participate in battle to establish dharma, whereas he has allowed all his devotees' children, that is Pandava's children, to participate, and all the children, they have been killed. Why this is? Yeah.
Well, I'll take that question and extrapolate a principle, and that is, and I think I mentioned it a little bit, that there's a backstory, right? Like here we're reading about the backstory. I mentioned this backstory, I think, when I gave class here in Karti. That, there's a backstory to these 9 children dying. It's a, as we would say in ISKCON, it's a far out backstory, right? And Devaki, she only finds out 4 chapters earlier, in chapter 85, the backstory between her 6 children. And every one of us has a backstory, right? How did we get to a human form of life, right? For example, or where were we in our last life? How old are you, Prabhu? How old are you? Your age. 50. Okay. Where were you 55 years ago? What's your backstory? So everyone has a backstory. And so I don't know, I'm not a Mahabharata scholar, and I don't know the specific answer, but there's a backstory to that. And Krishna and Vyasadeva know it, and perhaps it's explained elsewhere. But the principle is to remember that there is, like Prabhupada telling Peter Burwash, don't be upset at the agent of your karma. So when you're going through something and somebody's giving you a hard time, there's a backstory to that. Right? I'm sure some of us have had the experience, there's somebody in our life that we know there was something going on in a previous life with that person. I think many of us probably have that experience.
At the end of the battle, Gandhari has cursed Lord Krishna, saying that because you don't know the pain of the children. So that is how.
I don't know the details, but we know there's a backstory.
Yeah.
Anything else? Okay, so I was thinking, they're not small, no, there's no small points in the Bhagavatam, but, And of course, Arjuna is acting like a Kshatriya, and I'm as far away from a Kshatriya's consciousness as they come, practically speaking. But we can learn a lesson from that is be careful what we promise, because it can come back. It almost did him. He almost committed suicide. He didn't. Krishna saved him. He's such a great devotee. But it's a good recommendation that don't make a lot of promises in life, but the ones that we make, we should keep strictly. It's a good lesson to be learned, right? Because sometimes, if we too quickly say, yes, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll be there. Of course, we know what it's like, kind of like, because I lived in India now for many years, and I learned the lesson that if you invite somebody to a function or something, and they say, yes, I'll be there, pakka, 25% chance they'll be there. Right? It's just kind of the way things work. Yes. But when we take, of course, our initiation vows, but other promises that we make, learn a good lesson here from this chapter is make them few and far between, and then carry them out, come hell or high water, as the saying goes. And there's one other thing, but did you want to say something?
You said something just before this.
When it comes back to you?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other point, I don't know if there's any, we'll see if there's any questions or comments on that in just a second. Oh, did I lose the, anyway, yes. So Arjuna's choosing to take shelter of Lord Shiva instead of Lord Krishna. And in the purport, I think it's Sridhar Swami that he quotes, I can't remember. But it just says the Acharyas. So the Acharyas say that because the Brahmin had already offended and spoke ill of Krishna, he tactfully mentioned Lord Shiva instead. And this word tact, there's one letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to Balavanta Prabhu in 1972 that is very, very important to me in my service. So I pretty much have it memorized, but I'll just paraphrase it though, because I may not be getting it exactly right. But Prabhupada's talking about preaching, sharing Krishna consciousness with college students and people who are smart, basically. And he said that they may be a little puffed up, he said, but they deserve it. I thought that was interesting. They deserve it. It's their karma, right? And he said, therefore, we will have to use much tact. So the word was tactfully in the purport today, and then Prabhupada uses the word tact. But what's a synonym for tact?
Diplomacy. Like being diplomatic.
Sensitive.
Yeah, empathy, yeah. Okay, so, and he said, and then he gives the example of Lord Chaitanya, and just meditate on this. Lord Chaitanya sitting for 7 days without saying anything, and just listening to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. We're lucky we can stay awake for 7 minutes in the Bhagavatam class. 7 days, right? And he said, but he said if we can learn that example, then he said, then he gave the example of Krishna in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, listening to Arjuna, and they said even though Arjuna was speaking nonsense, what he said. So he said if we can listen to these college students and appreciate their point of view, that's the exact word, appreciate their point of view. And I can tell you, some of us sitting over here can confirm, and back there, that college students, 1972, I think they had four points of view: drugs, sex, rock and roll, and Mayavad philosophy. Is that fair?
That's pretty close.
Pretty close, right? Good. But he said if you appreciate their point of view, gradually they will join us. So, Krishna is called Uttama Shloka Gunana Varnam, one who's glorified with choice words. So when we're trying to spread Krishna consciousness, we can remember that those instructions to Balavanta Prabhu, that it takes, the words that we choose and the mood that we approach other people with, it's very important. And we can get so much inspiration from the Shastra especially the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Just because if you look, when you're reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, you can read it in different ways, but one way is to look at the relationships and look at how they communicate. Just look at Arjuna's sensitivities, that he chooses to speak about Lord Shiva instead of Lord Krishna in this particular time, place, and circumstance. So that's, Daksha, that's expertise, to know the time, the place, the circumstance in which, you have this much philosophy. Which part of the philosophy is going to help that soul? That takes some tact, as the word Prabhupada used. Okay?
I remember.
Those are the 2 points I wanted to make in addition to the main point. About tact and about promises.
That I remember. It was
Okay.
promises. And so
But that's
I
what
remember
you're
Bhishma.
What?
Bhishma.
Bhishma.
Father Bhishma. He got in, and we could say, well, he took the wrong side. Why? Because he made a promise he will defend the throne.
Yeah?
Instead of understanding who's. So it seems like we have a choice between Dharma and Sanatan Dharma, where Arjuna takes the side, which is actually serving Krishna, Krishna's desires, being surrendered to him, being a friend. So Bhishma had to take consequences of.
Nice.
It's like when he's lying in the bed of arrows, and Draupadi comes and says, "But look what you did," like that, and says, "Well, I'm sorry, but now, yes, I've eaten their food."
Yeah.
And I stayed there, but now all that blood, all that food that transformed in blood is all drained to the ground.
Thank you. And Bhishma's another, by the way, last point. Bhishma's another example, Grandfather Bhishma, is another example of where do you put the blame, right? Because he was saying, how did this happen? Was it the 9th chapter? 9th chapter of the 1st canto? Then he just says, Kala, the time factor. How did these great souls, the Pandavas, how did they suffer so much? Krishna.
So also about being also about being tactful, and the students in 72. Actually, we were very idealistic,
Yes.
and so we wanted freedom, love. We don't know what it was. So it's like Arjuna presenting great arguments why he shouldn't fight, but there's always a transcendental truth that could
Krishna cut through it.
cut
Yes.
through it.
Okay, so lessons from today. When life throws you a lemon, make lemonade. Now that's really... And Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.